The 2020 Indianapolis Colts went 11-5 and made the playoffs and nearly beat a team that went to the AFC Championship game in the Buffalo Bills in their stadium back in January. Now, the team this year looks a lot different, mainly from the quarterback position, as Carson Wentz will go from the Eagles to the Colts and will be back under Frank Reich, who he had his most successful NFL season by far out of his first 5 years under the guidance and direction of Frank Reich. Now, the verdict on Carson Wentz's first 5 years is pretty split. Either you think heading into the 2021 season, and this is most likely, I'm sure there are people on the fence, but the general consensus is either Carson Wentz is hated by people and he's just a bum, not a good player, whatever, you get what I'm saying, and it'll continue in Indy, or he had nothing to really help him in Philly. Frank Reich will turn his career around and he's going to be a great player in Indy. And in today's video, as you can see, the title is Can the Indianapolis Colts win a Super Bowl in 2021? We are obviously going to project, at least in today's video, Carson being the latter and that he will improve in Indy this year. So before we dive into everything and what must the Colts do to win a Super Bowl in 2021, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as each only take a second to do and each would be very much appreciated. Now let's begin. So when looking at the Colts schedule and the first 5 games specifically, it is very easy to look at this schedule and think this is a team that could start out 1-4 or 2-3, and I don't think they would start out 0-5, but this is a team that you could very easily say when looking at their schedule that this team will be done by the second week of October, and quite honestly, there is reason to believe that. The first 5 games are home against the Seahawks, home against the Rams, and then 3 on the road of at the Titans, at the Dolphins, and at the Ravens. Now, what is also good to note, or key to note for them, is they were 1-5 in 2018 and then went on to, I think they finished the rest of the year winning every single game or finishing 9-1, and that is, I don't want to say possible here because they also play at San Francisco, at Buffalo, and then against the Bucs, but they will have to win tough games eventually. And even though this team could go off to a rocky start, this is a team that down the stretch of the season could get hot and could very well enter the playoffs, winning a lot of their 6 or 7 last games, and then be a team no one wants to face come January. So even though they do have a very tough start, I do think this is a team that, as we said, could get hot down the stretch and then be a team nobody wants to face in January. Now, I don't want to say or just, imply the Colts are absolutely screwed for their first 5 games. I just didn't want to understate how tough their first 5 games are going to be. And what I do want to say is their next 8 do get easier. And what I also want to say is Carson Wentz, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, Quentin Nelson, and Darius Leonard, and everybody else for that matter, are all going to be doing everything they can to present a horrendous start, which is possible. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it is possible. But their next 8 games after that at Baltimore on Monday night game are versus Houston, which should be a win. Let's just be honest. Let's just call it what it is. At San Francisco on Sunday night should be a good game. I do think they can win that one. Will they is another question. But then the next 3 are all winnable. And one is first Tennessee versus the Jets on Thursday, so they have a mini bye before they play the Trevor Lawrence-led Jags for the first time of the Trevor era. And then back-to-back tough games of at Buffalo versus Tampa, and then at Houston before their December 12th, by the way, which is critical, their December 12th bye. So to have that late of a bye week in a 18-game season, or an 18-week schedule rather, 17-game season, is going to be critical for this team because they will only play 4 games coming off of that bye before the rest of the season. And those 4 games are going to be versus the Patriots, at the Cardinals, versus the Las Vegas Raiders, and at Jacksonville. So by no means are those 4 games they're nowhere near as tough as that first 5 games are, and then those back-to-back games at Buffalo and versus the Bucs. Are they easy by any means? No, I don't think so, but they are definitely not anywhere as tough. So if the Colts can somehow get through that next 8-game stretch at 5-3 or 6-2, then I think they are setting themselves up for a pretty good position, as I don't think the Titans are going to be a 13-win team. I definitely don't think they're going to be a 3-win team either, to be clear, but I don't think the Titans are going to take the league by storm and go 13-4, and the Colts, for any possibility to match them, are going to have to get that. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I do think the Colts are going to have to get 10 to 11 wins to win the division, and with this schedule, I do think it's possible. It's definitely not going to be easy by any means, but I definitely do think that is possible. One thing I do want to say that also benefits the Colts is their final 3 games are at Arizona versus the Raiders and at the Jags. And the reason why I think this benefits them is none of these defenses are elite. Now, are they bad? Are they like atrociously bad? Not exactly either, but they're definitely not, all-time 85 Bears type defenses where Carson's going to be on his rear end because of the sheer pass rush and the receivers are going to be blanketed by 2009 Terrell Revis, because that certainly is not the case either with any of these teams. And I think Carson establishing a chemistry with Michael Pittman through not only these final 3 games, but through the entirety of the season, which, by the way, Michael Pittman being a 1,000-yard receiver is something that has not got a lot of steam outside of Indy, and I do think that is something that will happen this year. So a receiver that I am very big on heading into the 2021 season is indeed Michael Pittman, and obviously everyone knows about Jonathan Taylor, but I do think that Carson establishing the chemistry and really getting in sync with these guys more so in the final 3 games heading into January football is going to be critical for not only Carson's future with the team, but for the Colts' success and ultimately how their 2021 season will end. Now, one thing that has come about more in the past couple of years is teams getting revenge. And when we saw that last year, it was the Bucs getting revenge on the Saints as the Saints swept them in the regular season. And by the way, the Saints absolutely mauled the Bucs in the one game in the regular season that was in Tampa. They were up like 35 points at halftime. And then, as we know, Tom and the gang, like Tom's whole career has been, got revenge. Antoine Winfield Jr. punched the ball out of Jared Cook. And then in the Super Bowl, Antoine Winfield Jr. with the signature piece with Tyreek Hill with that infamous picture, and they got revenge twice, right? And how we're referring to that and why we're bringing that to today's video is the Colts play both the Ravens and the Bills early in the regular season, and they go to Baltimore on Monday night. And Baltimore is a significant place because it is never easy to play, and as a resident of Maryland, there are still people that do not like the Colts because of the move in the middle of the night, and as you can probably guess, that is people that are a little older that still feel that way because the younger generation really doesn't care, and the players obviously don't care, but there is a hatred from some Ravens fans towards the Colts because of that. So and when they play on Monday night early in the regular season in Baltimore, it will be a very hostile environment for the Colts. That's just the way it is. It is always like that when they come to Baltimore. Speaking from a Maryland resident, that is my credentials in that topic, but what we're saying is the Ravens, if they do go to Indy in the playoffs, there is a good possibility that the Colts could get revenge then and there in the playoffs, and that would obviously be the cherry on top for Frank Reich and them, is to lose in the regular season in Week 5 to the Ravens. And the reason that this could happen is the Ravens' final 7 games are not easy for them, where the Colts have that very, very late bye, and that will be critical for them. The Ravens have their 7 final games. 5 of those are divisional games, and another one they play is against the Rams. So they definitely did not get any sort of break in the schedule, where the Colts didn't either at the beginning of the season. But in a sense, I feel like you'd rather get the hard games out of the way at the beginning. And the Ravens, they get a brutal end of the schedule for them, as 5 division games plus the Rams at home is certainly not easy. So I do think if these teams do meet in the playoffs, that the Colts will just wear them down with Jonathan Taylor and the gang, and I do think the Colts will beat them if the Ravens do, in fact, go to Lucas Oil Stadium in January. So the Ravens are not the only team the Colts will play in the regular season that will more than likely make the playoffs, as they go to Buffalo as well in the regular season, and Buffalo ended their year last year and ended Phillip Rivers' career. Not really, Phillip is going to retire anyway, but that was the final game Phillip Rivers played in. So Indy playing Buffalo again in the playoffs is a very real possibility, and I'm all for it, honestly. As a neutral fan, it was a very good game last year, and I do think Indy will more than be up for the challenge a year later. They could have improved quarterback play depending how Carson Wentz is, and Jonathan Taylor is going to be a year better, and so is the offensive line, and of course Michael Pittman. So Michael Pittman against Tre'Davious White, by the way, would be very entertaining again, but I do think Indy against Buffalo could be another revenge game, and we very well could have a little bit of a revenge tour for the Colts in the playoffs if this is the route they go. And as you can imagine, when talking about the AFC playoffs and a team going to the Super Bowl at some point, you have to mention Patrick Mahomes, and now here is Patrick's time. As I record this, Patrick and Tom Brady were announced as the covers for Madden 22, so congratulations to both of those guys. But for Indy to go to the Super Bowl and to play in Super Bowl 56, by the way, there are some other teams we didn't mention yet that they could have to go through, like the Chargers, the Titans. I'm sure there's a couple others we are forgetting, but mainly those, the Browns, of course. What we are saying is at some point they will also more than likely have to go through the Chiefs. Now, if the Chiefs stumble, I would be surprised before the Colts would face them, assuming they would meet in the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs have been to 3 straight AFC Championship games under the Patrick Mahomes era, and in order for a team to go to the Super Bowl, they have to go through Kansas City, and the only team to go through Kansas City in the AFC during the Patrick Mahomes era was the Tom Brady-led Patriots, and if it were not for, and obviously there were a lot of other things that, led up to this, but if it were not for a Dee Ford offsides penalty, then Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs would have went to 3 straight Super Bowls, and I feel like that's a fact. I don't, that's personally what I think, but obviously there were a lot of things leading up to it. The Chiefs offense didn't put up a lot of points in that first half in that game, but what we're saying is if the Colts want to go to the Super Bowl this year, they will more than likely have to either A, go to Arrowhead, or B, if they do somehow get the number 1 seed, host the Kansas City Chiefs in Lucas Oil Stadium in the playoffs. So going to the Super Bowl for any team, let alone the Colts, is going to be a very tough task for the AFC because of those darn Chiefs. Now, can they do it is another thing, and I do hope, we find out whether, I really hope the Colts stay healthy this year because I do think they have, the sky is the limit for them. I like Carson, I like Jonathan Taylor, I like Michael Pittman, I like T.Y. Hilton, and of course Frank Reich. Quentin Nelson is one of my favorite players in football. The same goes to Darius Leonard, and I do think this is a team that can, if everything goes right for them, they can make a deep playoff run in what will be year 1 of the Carson Wentz era. And for what it's worth, I do think they will end up giving the first round pick to the Eagles because that is as of now a conditional pick. Carson has to play 75% of the snaps for the Eagles to get that compensation. But anyways, that's all I have for today's video. Verdict is I do think the Colts can get there, but a lot of stuff has to go for them. So anyways, that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. And until next time, have a great day. Love you guys. Deuces. Peace.